So, Mr. Secretary, I mentioned in my opening comments the RIF plans. On February 11th, President Trump signed an executive order requiring agency heads to plan, quote, large-scale reductions in force, known as RIFs, and agency reorganization plans. On March 27th, Senator Moran and I sent you a letter requesting that you send us the plans the department submitted to the White House. It's now June 4th. We've not received a response. We're in the middle of a budget hearing. First of all, you would agree, would you not, that your reorganization plans are relevant to the committee's consideration of the budget?
I think our proposal for the budget is clear, so I think it takes those things into account.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask you this. Are you going to provide us with the reorganization plan, and when?
I will certainly get together with the department, and we will consider what information we can give you that makes sense. But I'm happy to work with you offline if you'd like.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, you're aware of the fact that a federal district court ruled that the RIF plans proposed by the Trump administration could not go forward because the judge stated that, quote, agencies may not conduct large-scale reorganizations and reductions in force in blatant disregard of Congress's mandates, and a president may not initiate large-scale executive branch reorganization without partnering with Congress. That decision was upheld by an appellate court just a few days ago. I'm not asking you to opine on that legal decision. I'm simply asking you to provide the committee with a reorganization plan, and your response is maybe yes, maybe no. Am I getting that right? I mean, are you going to provide the plan to this committee as we review the budget for the upcoming year?
Well, we at the department are going to follow the law. That, of course, is what we're going to do. Okay.
Well, the law actually does require that you submit these major changes to the Senate. Let me ask you this. I mentioned in my opening statement the fact that I'd sent a number of letters to you. Our staff has actually sent inquiries to your team. I have a lot of questions today, but they'll be a lot longer unless I can get a commitment that you and your team will respond to the inquiries we've made. These are simple questions. They don't, and I'll set aside for now the RIF plan. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent to submit to the record the letters that I've sent to the Secretary and the staff inquiries that my team has made.
Without objection.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, will you agree, say, within a week to get responses to these inquiries?
I can easily agree that I will go through your letters, and to the extent I can answer them, I will happily answer you within a week.
Well, when you say...
I don't know what the letters say.
This is an oversight
here right now. So.
Well, okay. Mr. Secretary, they're questions. I'll read through some of them later in the hearing. We can go through them one by one. They're pretty straightforward, simple questions about the implications of the department's actions on certain programs. Let me turn to the National Weather Service for a moment because, as you know, originally 600 staff were eliminated from the National Weather Service. Then all of a sudden, it seems the department realized that this was not really a good idea, as many weather stations around the country, and the chairman referenced some of them, said they couldn't be staffed full-time. We have a headline from just May 15th, Washington Post: NOAA scrambles to fill forecasting jobs as hurricane season looms. I know that we're scrambling to try and rehire about 100 or hire 126 people. But, Mr. Secretary, it's my understanding that as of today, offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon are no longer operating 24 hours a day. Is that accurate?
The department employs 2,100 meteorologists and hundreds of other forecasters. Okay, this is less than 5%. We are fully staffed. There are no openings on the National Hurricane Center, zero. It is fully staffed. We are fully ready for hurricane season, and our meteorologists
Mr. Secretary,
are fully staffed.
You did not answer.
You
did not answer the direct question about whether those weather offices are open full time, and it's obvious that you all made a huge mistake. I mean, you've acknowledged it by having to rehire 126 people. But can you just comment on whether or not those offices I mentioned are operating 24 hours a day?
We have not made a huge mistake. I did not say such a thing.
I didn't say you did. It's pretty obvious from the actions. I will. As I said, you fired 600. You're rehired.
Accurate, obviously.
Obviously. We're happy to follow up, and you can provide the facts.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Secretary, in Kansas, we have lots of.
What Senator Chris Van Hollen is doing here isn't just pressing a reluctant official. It's exposing one of the oldest tensions in American government. Who actually controls the machinery of our democracy, Congress or the executive branch? The confrontation over these reduction in force plans, or RIFs, may sound technical, but it cuts to the very heart of accountability. Back in 2017, President Trump signed an executive order instructing federal agencies to draft sweeping plans to shrink or reorganize their operations. On paper, this was framed as a way to cut costs and drain the swamp, but in practice, it raised red flags immediately. Why? Because under our Constitution, Congress holds the power of the purse. Agencies can't just unilaterally wipe out jobs, shutter offices, or overhaul entire departments without legislative approval. In fact, federal courts have already made this clear. A district court ruled, and an appellate court later affirmed, that agencies cannot conduct large-scale reorganizations or reductions in force without working with Congress. That precedent directly ties back to a fundamental constitutional principle: checks and balances. The president cannot simply reshape the federal government by executive order. So when Van Hollen presses Secretary Lutnick here, the question isn't abstract. It's rooted in constitutional law and reinforced by judicial rulings. And yet, Lutnick dodges, promising only to consider what information to provide. That hesitation tells us something important. Despite the law, there is still a tug of war over transparency. Now, the stakes aren't just procedural. Van Hollen highlights the example of the National Weather Service. At one point, over 600 staff were cut. Think about that for a second. Entire forecasting offices left understaffed in a country where hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and tornadoes threaten millions every year. Without around-the-clock staffing, warnings could be delayed or missed entirely. And yes, while officials scrambled to rehire roughly 126 forecasters after backlash, Van Hollen points out that some offices in states like Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon were still not operating 24/7. That's not just a bureaucratic hiccup. It's a matter of public safety. Lives depend on timely forecasts, especially as climate change drives more extreme weather. Weakening the Weather Service for budgetary reasons doesn't save money in the long run. It risks lives, property, and billions in disaster recovery costs. And this gets to the bigger picture. What Van Hollen is really saying here is, you cannot hide behind vague promises when the law requires transparency. You cannot gamble with essential public services in the name of efficiency or cost cutting. And you cannot sidestep Congress when the courts have ruled you are bound to provide oversight information. There's also a political layer here. This back and forth reflects a broader debate over the size and role of government. One side argues for streamlining and reducing bureaucracy. The other warns that cutting too deep means undermining essential services, from weather forecasting to healthcare to food safety inspections. These hearings become the battleground for that debate, and in moments like this, we see what's really at stake beyond the talking points. So, when Van Hollen pushes, "Are you going to provide Congress with these reorganization plans, yes or no?" and Lutnick waffles, it's not just a personality clash. It's a microcosm of a much larger struggle over democratic accountability. And here's the takeaway for all of us. Government transparency doesn't just happen because the law requires it. It happens when elected officials, like Van Hollen in this case, demand it over and over until answers are forced into the light. Without that persistence, critical decisions that affect every American could quietly slip through without scrutiny. The lesson is clear. Democracy depends on more than laws written on paper. It depends on vigilance, questioning, and accountability. Because when the people's representatives can't get straight answers, the people themselves are the ones left in the dark. So the question is, should Congress accept half answers and delays, or keep pressing until the law is followed in full? If you believe accountability in government isn't optional, stick with us. Subscribe and join the conversation. Because the more you understand what's happening behind these exchanges, the better equipped you are to hold leaders at every level accountable.